Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to PSGL. George Morgan here, your commentator, alongside me, TK, who is going to be rounding off the season with me. Down the inside, absolutely impossible scene.
This is for the win between these two.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
He needs to get it done now.
Blakey will dive to the inside.
We're robust. We got our elbows out.
Ronar takes the lead.
Because here comes Alfie Butcher.
Can't really complain with that one.
It's not going to be easy. The pressure is on, of course.
Jarno Watmere is your champion.
Good evening, a very good evening indeed. Welcome back to PSGL Season 43. Welcome to F1 26 and welcome to the start of hopefully yet another great season. I'll be your host for tonight. My name is Sky and your general pairing for this season here at F3 will be myself and Joseph Black.
Yes, it will. It's good to be back. It's good to be back with you. We've not worked together as often as I would have liked to, so it's very good to see that we get a whole season together. And we get a whole season together in F3, so we should have a fantastic grid to spend our season talking about.
Exactly. And before I'm going to see any more things, I'm just quickly going to check if we have everyone in our lobby. We currently have 20 drivers. I heard we had 3 stand-ins, so I have a little bit of time, so I'm going to take you through the placements first, so you can see who is all in this tier, and I'll walk you through who is for driving for which team. So here we go then. These are your placements with the correct allocations as follows. The team of McLaren will be led by Rafael Kuntz and Takubi. Scuderia Ferrari HPs Oliver Knott and Lawrence. Then for Red Bull, we have Daniel Kuijer and Wojtek Steg. Mercedes AMG Petronas team is the pairing of Jeremy Galanet and Cloud. Aston Martin sees Claudio Diaz and Redmers. For Alpine, it's Giovanni Kennis and Ivan Estrig. For Haas, it's Victor Garcia and Drax. Then Visa Cash App Racing Bull, or RB I should say, Lucas Beisner and Max van der Geest. Then it's Williams Toppe and Marius Ioano. Audi sees Dennis Langrock and Frank Yazziorni, and for the first time in 11 team, it's Cadillac's pairing of Scott Holmes and Diego Ferrer. Then we also have 5 reserve drivers this season: Valentino Labella, Carlos Galindo, Ryan Grob, David Martinez, and Noah Raza, of which Valentino Labella will be stepping in for Jeremy Galanet. Carlos Galindo will be stepping in for Daniel Kuijer, and David Martinez will be driving the Audi, although I'm not sure if he's replacing Dennis Langrock or Frank Yazziorni. That was quite a mouthful, wasn't it, Joseph? But out of those, which drivers do seem promising to you, or which drivers, perhaps, do you recognize?
Well, I mean, I've been involved in the scene for a while. I've gotten to know a few of these drivers, and I think that one driver that, if he can really hook himself up for this season straight away, could be doing a really good job that we might not know is Max van der Geest. Now, he found himself through the console side of things, and he's done very, very well. He's one of a few drivers who've made the step over within the last year or so. Another one being, of course, Lawrence, who could give everybody a go on his day, I think. I think those are the two in terms of those standouts that we might not be aware of so much. But, I mean, of course, we will wait and see what all of the drivers are capable of this season, because, of course, whilst it is the same game, it's a brand new era of the game. So we will see what they can do. Scott Holmes as well had a fantastic charge up throughout the last game cycle, and I'm excited to see what he's capable of.
Yeah, a lot of promising talents out here on the F3 grid. A couple of strong names that I remember from previous seasons. Rafael Kuntz, who is our host tonight, has been driving very well. Oliver Knott, our quali beast, who still needs to... well, he did get things together in the last season. Giovanni Kenneth was also quite strong in qualifying sessions. Just overall, a very stacked grid that we have here in F3. In the meantime, we are already loading in. Later on, we will also take you through the calendar of this season, but as it seems like we are now loading into the game, I'm also going to change us to our game view, and we'll get this first quali session underway. And Joseph, it is pouring out there in Silverstone.
Well, that's just to be expected from the British weather. We are going to be getting British weather here today. Whether we're going to be getting the same weather in both the sessions, I'm not sure just yet. But, of course, we will wait and see. And if we do, that will be absolutely fantastic. But these drivers would have prepared for so very long. I mean, as soon as the calendar came out, they would have been doing at least hot laps on this circuit. So for it to be a wet race is going to be... it's going to be frustrating for the drivers, but it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't mind some rain over here right now, but it looks like we get plenty in-game. Now, of course, as you watch the minimap that we have on our bottom right screen, a couple of things have changed. We do not have your traditional DRS zones anymore. We're now working with straight line modes. You see 4 of those out there on track. One at the start-finish line. One is down the Wellington Straight. The other one is leading up to Cops Corner, and then finally we have Hangar Straight, where we have the final straight line mode. So a couple of things changed with this iteration. Later on this season, you'll also see the first time that we are driving at the Madrid street circuit, but for tonight we're out at the wet Silverstone. It looks like a couple of drivers at least coming out on interest, Joseph.
Yeah, just giving it a go. Of course, we know that on last year's game cycle, it was easy to set a good lap on intermediate tyres. Not necessarily straight away, but then they could just do a first run to make sure there was a dry line on the circuit before they could give it a go. Whether that has transferred over to this game cycle, of course, it's the same game, but this game cycle on the new half of the F1 25 game. We will wait and see, but at the moment it certainly looks as though they are going to be giving it a go straight away to try and go for the same strategies as last year. And this is where the preparation from last season to this season is really going to come into effect, because they will be seeing the drivers that have prepared for these conditions will be seeing a massive reward, because they know what they can do in qualifying sessions like this. Those who might not have dedicated the time that they should have may well be punished.
Yeah, and when we look at all the tire allocations, I'm just leaving them on the screen for you guys right now. I'm going to remove them in a moment's notice. Only one driver out there that is going to try the full wets. That is Takumi. The rest of our drivers will be on the intermediate set. So I'm going to change that back, because in a moment's notice we'll have the Ferrari of Laurens Lauwers being the first one out there to set a lap, and also the first driver to set a lap in this new iteration here in season 43. And I think it's only fitting if we go on board with him. And Joseph, feel free to take us away.
Well, of course, we're going to ride on board with the Ferrari as we head through a lap of a very slippery Silverstone circuit. And you can see around the final corner how much Laurens Lauwers was struggling with that one as we headed down towards the first corner and towards what is not the first braking zone. This is the first braking zone down towards turn number 3. You sweep through turn 1 and turn 2. It might be a braking zone in turn 1 in these conditions, but as you head through the next segment and, well, you head out onto the first straight, which will, of course, be the Wellington Straight, you're going to see these drivers really trying to push it to the limit and get flat out as soon as they possibly can. Then the next braking zone is going to take them right down, and well, just especially in these conditions, it's going to be treacherous through these mid-speed corners, and Laurens Lauwers is trying to negotiate them at the moment before putting the power down on the exit, and it's very, very tentative at the moment as the drivers just prepare themselves for what could be a very tricky qualifying session. A lap on the board is so very important, and Lowers does not want to wash wide through Copse Corner. He's not going to. I think there was a decent amount of lift heading through that corner. Now he's catching up to, I believe that was a V-Cub who's moved out the way nice and courteously. So Maggots and Beckett's can be attacked by our Ferrari, who stands on the top of the standings with no lap time just yet. So he's there by default. Straight mode activated 3 times on this lap. This is the final time he will reap the full rewards of it as he heads down towards the final few corners and the final few braking zones on this lap. Slightly missing the apex and having a little bit of a wobble, which means he runs wide, doesn't quite clip the inside of the corner before the final chicane, and that is where you really need to clip both of these curbs. The final one you can attack in the dry. We'll see whether they can attack it in the wet. Lawrence is kind of going to have a look at it, but he's not going to push it too much, and his first lap on the board, everyone's first lap on the board for this session, is 1:41.843.
Yeah, pretty solid lap from Lawrence coming out there. Not easy to navigate his way through as Tope goes 3/10 quicker on his first run. It looks like the Inters are the best decision as we see Wojciech Steg now making his way to the end of the second sector, heading up the Hangar Straight 1:13.5. That's the sector time we should be eyeing for. And in the meantime, we see more laps coming through. Lucas Beisner in third with a 41.9. Takubi on the full wets with a 43.5, further showing that the full wets are about 2 seconds slower than everyone else as Ferrer and Labella put their laps on the board. But here comes Wojtek Steg drifting through the final couple corners, but he is quite fast. How fast is he? Fast enough to put provisional pole. He goes half a 10 up on Toppy.
That's exactly what Wojciech Steg would have wanted at this early part of this session, as his teammate is heading through to start on his lap is Carlos Galindo, and actually he's in that second sector, almost coming through towards sector 3, so we'll see more lap time thrown in, but the Williams development driver Tope is going to be on the front row alongside Steg. Those two, very, very good laps indeed. Tope 0.2 of a second quicker than Claudio Diaz. Claudio Diaz in himself a 1/10.5 quicker than Lawrence, so you can see who's done the practice in the wet, and whilst the track dries, these lap times will get rapid and rapid very, very quickly. Up to the top few drivers goes Lucas Beisner, just 0.06 quicker than Drax in 6th place. They both occupy the third row of the grid at the moment, and Carlos Galindo around the final couple of corners, he will try to put the power down. Where is this Red Bull going to go? It's going to be 7th place. No, it's not. It's 11th, as Cloud is going to really set his statement down, throw the gauntlet down with 1:40.8.
You know what the craziest thing about this lap is? He was stuck behind Carlos Galindo for most throughout that lap, and in that final sector he definitely got held up by the Red Bull man who was setting his fast lap. Carlos Galindo couldn't get close to the lap of his teammate, but Cloud surpasses it by 0.6 and having some traffic in his way. So it shows that he can go even quicker than he already did. So this is a man we definitely need to look out for throughout this qualifying session. So far we have 4 drivers without a lap time set. Those are Max van der Geest, who has invalidated, Rafael Kunz, who now makes his way to Sector 2, Franek Yaziorni, who is at the end of Sector 2, now making his way through Maggots and Beckett's and into Chapel, and Redmers, who's still on an outlap. So we're going to stay with Franek. He goes for a 14.1 in that middle sector. That is about 0.7 quicker, I believe, than Carlos Galindo was able to do. So we're going for about a 1:42 dead, perhaps a 1/10 or so quicker. And that would put him right around the mark of Lucas Beisner. But how quick can he make that Audi go around? It's a lovely looking car as he makes his way around the final 2 corners. Across the finish line he now goes, and Franek Yaziorni puts himself P10, losing a 1/10 in that final sector.
Yeah, Jojourni's not going to be particularly happy about that one, especially because he's behind his teammate. 2 more drivers to come to the line before everybody has set a time apart from Max van der Geest, and Cloud goes even faster at the top of the field at 1:40.1. Unbelievable lap time from the Veloce Academy driver. Lawrence Lowers goes quicker. Rafael Kunch goes up into P3. Those drivers who stayed out are reaping the rewards in terms of the standings at the moment, but you only feel as though the lap times will improve, as Lawrence is going to get a 1:40 flat at the moment. Wojtek Steg, who was pole man after the first runs, is going to be 1.4 seconds behind Beisner up to the front row.
Yeah, it looks like the track is getting better and better for all the people out there to drive. It doesn't look like it's raining all as much, and we see a dry line starting to appear as Retmers goes very wide through Kopp's corner. But this shows that the track is improving and will make it easier for the drivers when they put in more and more laps to put in much faster lap times on the board. Again, this time for Cloud, he's a 10th off, but he had to make an overtake on Carlos Galindo throughout corners 1, 2, and 3. So that means there's also a couple more 10s in it for him as Claudio Diaz that puts the Aston Martin on provisional pole position, the first driver to break the 100-second barrier. And I think it's safe to say, Joseph, that tractor is going a lot quicker here tonight.
Yes, of course, it's going to be equal performance for all of these drivers. So Claudio Diaz isn't going to have the inhibition of being in the Aston Martin as Redmers goes up to the top 10. He's just about going to slot himself in there. Frank Journey just behind 140.9 and 141.0 respectively for those two drivers as, well, we see the rest of the laps starting to fly in and we see the rest of our drivers ready to come to the line. Of course, it's... There's many layouts of this circuit. This is the one that comes to a close right as you head towards the little segment where it's difficult to keep that traction up, especially in those conditions. But you can really see that there is a dry line forming for these drivers now, and they're going to reap the rewards of that one as we're going to get a few more drivers to the line. Diego Ferrer has invalidated on his lap. I don't think there's going to be any more improvements in terms of lap times, in terms of those who are heading through them right now. But those just starting on them, I'm sure they'll be flying their way to the top.
Yeah, I think one of those drivers that has just started a lap is Wojtek Steg, who's currently in P13, now making his way down that Wellington straight, opening his rear wing for that straight line mode. Let's see how fast he can go in that first sector compared to his own time. Time has actually disappeared, so I have no idea what his first sector time was and whether it is on par with his previous lap or not. He has a 41.4 on the board. It's a second and a half off of the current fastest time set by Claudio Diaz. A lot of drivers have actually come into pit lane, so I think most of the drivers are just trying to wait out the weather a little bit, have the other drivers clear that track more and more out of that standing water, and then those final few minutes pump out a couple of laps and see if they can maybe even go as close into the 38s as we would see, as we see two more drivers break the 39 barrier. Takubi now third, and Claudio Diaz's teammate puts Aston Martin for a 1-2, the first one to go into 39.8. But seeing Aston 1-2, that definitely gives us a good sign. But here comes Tope. Whoa, look at that, a 138.9. Talking about breaking barriers into the 138s, Tope does it already.
Statement there from Tope. He's not one to be messed with, and he is going to be right up the top, just ahead of the two Aston Martins right now. Wojtek Steg, though, 39.4, so not able to hold a candle to the Williams just yet, but it's a good sign of things to come for the Red Bull, who's been right up the very top of this session all the way throughout it. Heading through the final few corners is going to be Drax, who's the next one up to the line, and he's got a significant improvement in that Haas car. The ET8 man hoping to have a big F1 26, and around the final few corners he slides as he gets the power down out of the penultimate one. Drax up to the front row of the field. Where is this next Ferrari going to go? This will be another couple of drivers to the line. It's David Martinez actually in the Audi, as he is in the bright red colours on the timing tower. He goes up to 5th. He was 4th. Labella's up there, and now he's down to 6th as Claudio Diaz takes the top spot.
Yeah, that's a great lap from Claudio Diaz, snatching off another half a second from the fastest lap time set by Tope. So we're currently watching Max van der Rees set his first lap time. One of two drivers without a lap time, as Scott Holmes has just joined us as our 21st driver on the grid. Max now also diving into the 138. Second fastest, a pretty decent, actually really good run for his first timed lap that has now come on the board. But I want to scroll down a little bit more and move over to Cloud. Cloud was very impressive at the early stages of this session. He's now gone into pit lane. I think he's gone for fresh rubber, and he's now starting another fast run. Let's see how quick he is on this run, because I think he can get awfully close to likes of Diaz, Max, and Tope.
Is he a driver who likes the conditions, or is he a driver who is just very good at this Silverstone circuit? Or the third, more sinister option, he is the quickest driver on this field. We will see as the Mercedes man heads through the next couple of sectors and sets what will be his third lap time on the board. His second was good enough for the top in the second set of runs, but now he's been pushed all the way down to 13th place, so the Mercedes will be hoping to find his way at least into the 139s as a benchmark. The 138s will be excelling, and that will be exactly where he expects to be after the first couple of runs were so very good to him. Straight mode activated once again, and a second and a half even improved on his previous time. If he can find 2/10 in this final sector, Claudio Diaz is in trouble. Cloud then trying to stay to the dry line as much as he can, knowing how slippery it is on the outside line. He's touched it too much. He's into the pit lane. Is this a switch for dry tyres?
I'm not sure if this would be a switch for dry tires. It looks a little bit too wet to go for it, but I think Cloud has realized I can go quicker, and if I dive into pit lane now, I can set myself up for a better run later on down the line, because there's just about 3 more minutes left on that clock. Victor Garcia has gone and taken the start-finish straight so far. He's driving rather slowly. I think he's going for an extra warm-up lap. Let's see, Takubi is currently out on an out lap. We will see him later on. In about a minute, he will be approaching the start-finish straight. Lucas Beisner was just out. I was just going to jump to it, but here he goes to the top of the timing table. A 1:38.084, and where we thought we might be seeing some laps into the 1:38s, Joseph, it looks like 1:37 is now on the cards.
It certainly does, and we might even get 136s. There's the 138 from Lucas Beisner to take him to the top of the field and really set a statement down as Diego Ferrer goes into second place, not too far off the back. He'll be a 10th and a half off the back of the V-Carb at the very top of the field right now, and he's done a fantastic job, has the Cadillac, to find that time from what feels like absolutely nowhere. But now the final drivers are coming out. They are coming out for their final times, and we will see the final classification decided in just under 2 minutes time then, as Lucas Beisner 38.0 sits at the top of the field. He's unlikely to get another lap time on the board. He's pretty much confirmed without, and so he is going to be under so much pressure, you'd imagine, as it almost looks like time for dry tyres, but no, nobody's going to take that risk. Everybody out there on the intermediates, and Victor Garcia, well, I think he's another driver with his session at a close. I think Beisner, Ferrer and Garcia have done all they can.
Yeah, time definitely is starting to tick now as we're watching Takubi make his way to the end of the first sector. 7/10 already up in that first sector alone. Needs to clear 1.9 seconds if he wants to jump to the top of the table. Something that he can definitely go for. We have a penalty for Giovanni Kennis, which means that we're likely going to have a restart after this qualifying session, giving us a little bit more time to reflect on everything that has just happened and also give you guys an insight of the calendar. The wonderful calendar this season, as Takubi has just invalidated. Now, he has a little bit of time left to still go for an extra run, but I wonder how he is going to approach this, because the invalidation could not have come at a worse moment. I'm going to see Mario Ziwanu. He set a faster lap before. In the first sector, he's not going for an improvement just yet, but he is definitely pushing. On the other end, Diego Ferrer is lining up with the red belt. Look at that. We have a massive train starting to form with a Mercedes out on top of it. Is that Valentino Labella? It is not Valentino Labella. It is actually Cloud who is leading that pack. So let's go watch Cloud. He was fast early on. This is his final run. We have 10 seconds left on the board. I think quite a few drivers are not going to make the cut, Joseph.
No, it certainly looks like they're not going to. It's the other Mercedes at the back of the field who's going to be the one most in trouble as they come to the line. No, 1 second to go for all of those drivers at the back. They will get one more lap, but how much are they going to be held up? Everybody waited so very long to wait for those times to come in and for those drivers to get out of the way. Cloud has found a second in Sector 1. How does that stack up with the rest of the field? We will wait and we will see. Victor Garcia finding some improvements as well. The order that we got right now is definitely not going to be the order that we'll have at the end of the session. So it's going to be fascinating to see who will stack up where. It's going to be a shot in the dark as to who will stack up where. Mario Suano's not going to improve any more than third place, but a 38.415 is going to take him above a lot of drivers who may well invalidate, who may well feel the pressure on this final lap time. Also, don't forget they're all in a train with each other, so it's going to be difficult to find any clean air. It's all going to be dirty through the mid-speed corners. Victor Garcia to the top of the field, a 37.798. I didn't think he would get another lap on the board, but with 8-lap old intermediate tyres on that car, he's done a fantastic job. But is that a sign of things to come, as Cloud's got 2.3 seconds on his previous time? That would take him to within a tenth of Garcia. That's what he did as he was chasing on his penultimate run and down towards the final one. What can Cloud do as he comes to the line? A 37.0. That is a great lap time to throw in. David Martinez up to the front row. Victor Garcia dropped to third, now dropped to fourth as Claudio Diaz and David Martinez beat him out. Takubi up to eighth. Rafael Kunch's teammate to the top. Everybody flying in with lap times at the end into the 37s. You said they were going to threaten them. They certainly did. And well, that's going to mean that it will be the McLaren right out on top. Cloud on the front row.
I know we're watching a qualifying session, but that damn well looked like an actual race towards the end. So many drivers close to one another, getting a lap time on the board just in the nick of time, and they were all able to set their lap times. But the man that has prevailed, indeed, as you mentioned, Joseph, Rafael Kunz has pole position ahead of Cloud. Then it's Claudio Diaz, Diego Ferrer in fourth, Redmers in fifth, followed by Max van der Geest, Wojtek Steck, Giovanni Kennis, Lucas Beisner, and rounding off your top 10 is Valentino Labella for the Mercedes-AMG Petronas F1 team. But what a qualifying session we've had, and I think as I was seeing earlier on, I think let me just get the right overlay for you guys. Now I have the wrong one. Now I have the right one. Here we go. I have to get used to that a little bit, but I think we might get a restart. So I'm quickly going to check in with the drivers, because we had a penalty come through for, I believe, Giovanni Kennis. And if that is indeed the case, Joseph, we might see a restart. Even though it is sunny out there now, it might not be when we come back in a moment.
It may well not, and well, we will be restarting this session most likely. They're just having a chat between the coordinators of the session and the coordinators of the league to see whether that is the right thing to do, and I think that is absolutely the right thing to do as well. But yeah, they're just checking whether Giovanni Kennis is going to be able to start from the grid position which he earned, which was 8th place, or whether he's going to have to start from 13th place is the Dutchman. We shall wait and see as to whether that is going to be the case, but either way, it will be Rafael Kunch on that pole position, the German driver, with a great lap at the end. And it looks like we're about to get going for season 44.
Yeah, it looks like in the chat we've heard Rafael speak of a restart. So I think we're going to have a restart indeed. So we'll have a little wait until we have all of that underway. So we'll take a couple of minutes for that. Alright, that seems to be happening at least for now. Let me just quickly tap back into the game, and it looks like we're indeed going proper restart. But yeah, we have 21 drivers on the grid, the most that we have ever seen on the grid. Of course, with that additional 11 team that we have this season, Joseph, there's quite a bit to come, but much more to come throughout this whole season. Would you be so kind to take us through the calendar that we have here in season 43?
Absolutely, of course, it would be my pleasure to talk us through what is actually a very, very good calendar indeed. You get a bit nervous at the start of a game cycle because you never quite know what the calendar is going to end up looking like. For that first season, it can be the defining moment for a league. But for this league, I think we've hit it pretty well. We've got Britain first up, a circuit very well known to the drivers. We've raced here the majority of the seasons that we've had each of the PCTs in PSGL. So it was always a likely inclusion. It'll be a fascinating season opener. Then we head to China next week, and well, that'll be a different dynamic, less medium speed corners apart from that turn one. And of course, we've got that massive straight down the back, which will see the straight mode activated for the first time in these F126 cars. Belgium next, and that will be the longest lap on the calendar, and it'll be a great one at the legendary Spa-Francorchamps before we head to a week's break after 3 rounds, which is pretty early, but it means that we can really set the calendar alight as we head down to race 4 down to race 11. We get our first look at the Madrid on August the 13th to the 17th if you are PC or PS, and then we head to Austria for the halfway mark of the season if we count the break in the middle at the Red Bull Ring. That'll be one of my favourite circuits. We go from Belgium at round 3, the longest on the calendar, to Austria, the shortest. Imola, round number 6. And, well, whilst that track seems to be... They keep trying to push it out of the Formula 1 calendar, it's still an iconic circuit, and it still provides some very good racing and some dangerous racing as well if you include the curbs in your equation, which a lot of drivers seem to fall foul of. Las Vegas for round number 7, under the lights, and well, it's a potential season finale for the real life Formula 1, but it's not going to be a season finale here. It's just round 7 because we've got a 4-race stretch. Mexico will be next up, and we've seen some drama there in the past. Brazil, even more drama, and it's my favourite circuit in terms of anyone on the F1 game and any real F1 circuit of all time. Bahrain, heading towards our latter stages of the season, will be an interesting night race, the penultimate race of the campaign, and then we head to Texas for our season ender. And well, I mean, whilst Britain is a really intriguing first round of the season, Texas as a last round I don't think I've ever seen before.
No, me neither, but I think Texas is one of those tracks where you always see some hot action, so I'm glad that we have that on the calendar. Same can be said about Brazil. I think it's a race that you should have on any calendar. Same with Austria, where qualifying is always so tense. Imola is always so lovely to drive, and Belgium, the track in Spa, being as iconic as could possibly be. I'm also very glad to see that we have Madrid on the calendar, but then again, with it making its first appearance in the game, I don't think that the organizers could do anything else but to put that on the calendar. But 11 races that we will have this season, and I'm very curious to hear from everyone out there watching the stream which track they are favoring the most out there this season. Now I'm going to put us back to the camera views. We are currently waiting for everyone to get back in. It looks like our host is currently pinging the drivers to ready up. As I said, we'll have 21 drivers coming out tonight. 3 stand-in drivers making an appearance, and the first points that will be handed out here in F126, the DLC that we have to this game. We already mentioned we had quite a couple changes to this game iteration, but just to quickly recap them all, Joseph, can you help me out with this one? What changes have we really seen with this DLC? Apart, of course, from the very obvious one, the team changes.
Well, exactly. Of course, we've got Cadillac and Audi on the grid this time around, so that will be very interesting indeed to see the way that the 2 new teams are, because of course it's going to be difficult for us as people who try to follow the track map, because we're going to have now Audi and Ferrari, so 2 cars that will be running the little red dot in the bottom right of your screens, but we'll try to keep across that as best we can. Obviously the straight mode as well, so that it's one of the biggest fundamental changes in F1 since really I started watching, where the DRS is out and it's being replaced by the straight mode, which will provide the opportunity for the drivers to have just a different dynamic heading down through each one of the straights. We've got 3 of those on the Silverstone circuit. We've got the one down the main straight, the one down the back straight, and then of course we've got the name that's escaping me, straights that we'll have in the middle as you head out of turn number 4. I'll get there, but it begins with a W, but I'm stuck on that one for the time being. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting indeed to see the dynamic of how that is going to really play into the races and the dynamics that all of the drivers have, because it's an entirely different management system, and they will have practiced it, of course, a lot heading into it, and it's very different to DRS, so the way they're managing it is going to be intriguing, and we've seen fascinating races. I mean, there was one where we had a pre-race a social race even, where we had a 3-wide moment at the end of the Kemmel Straight at Spa, where it was chaos. Everyone was managing their straight mode differently. It depletes a lot quicker than DRS, so and then ERS as well. And the ERS, in fact, is going to deplete a lot quicker in its own right. So it's going to be more flat-out racing rather than management on this year's game, I think. But then at the same time, it could actually be the other way around. So I think I meant it the other way around, where the drivers can have... They could have flat-out racing on last year's game. They deemed it a little bit too easy. So now it's going to be a bit of a debate and a bit of a management game.
Yeah, we're going to see how that is going to affect the racing all the way through. We've seen in previous seasons a lot of drivers like to stay within that, well, previously called DRS train. We won't be able to call that anymore. I think we'll just straight up refer to it as an actual train. Whether that is going to change or not, I don't think we're going to see too many changes in that. Of course, because of the power differences, it will be slightly easier to go for overtake, but it will also be easier instead to be overtaken again by the other driver, because as soon as your battery depletes, your opponent will likely have some more battery life left and use that to his advantage to get back at you. What we know though for tonight is that we'll have 26 racing laps. So drivers are currently gearing up, and I'm going to take you through the track map that we have for tonight. So here we are, Silverstone Circuit, 3.6 miles or 5.89 kilometers, home to the Aston Martin F1 team, was first ever race in 1948. That's how long it's been on the calendar. One of the classic tracks that we have with famous straights and corners such as the Wellington Straight, Luffield. We have, of course, Maggots and Baggots, lovely Cops Corner in there too, with Stowe towards the end of the circuit also. So some very famous corners and tracks, and as of recently also a track named after one of the living and racing legends out there, the Hamilton Straight that we now see at the start-finish line. Now I'm going to take us over to our in-game view, because we are currently waiting for drivers to pick their setups, Joseph, and it looks like once again we're going to see bright skies, and not like qualifying where it was quite rainy out there, but we'll have a dry race by the looks of it.
Yeah, it certainly looks as though that's what we will get, and well, of course the rain could threaten and the rain could loom heading on throughout it, and I'm just waiting to see my telemetry update so I can bring to you exactly what the weather will look like throughout the course of this fascinating race, the first race of the season. So I think all of the drivers will be hoping that it'll be dry, because it's the first time that they will be going wheel to wheel on F1 26. So a fascinating race that we've got coming up, and it's a great circuit as well to watch them go side by side. There's plenty of overtaking opportunities around Silverstone. There's sometimes where it can get a little bit boring and peter out, but that's typically in the 100% races. That's typically in the real life Formula 1. But on PSGL, it always tends to be that little bit more exciting.
Yes, indeed. I'm now going to switch us over to the full race view, because in a moment's notice we'll see the race go underway. It's already set 26 laps is the amount of laps the drivers will have to fight out who of the 21 out there on grid will take the cake and say, hey, I was the first winner of not only season 43, not only of F3, but also here in F1 26. So quite the cake to battle for. Joseph, your top three for tonight?
Oh, that's going to be a difficult one. I think Cloud's really staked his claim for it. But if I'm going to go against who seems like the quickest driver out on circuit, I'm going to go for Diaz. I'm going to go for Diego Ferrer. And I think Max van der Geest can sneak one.
Very good. Then I am going to go with a P3 for Cloud, a P2 for Claudio Diaz, and a P1 for Rafael. Let's see how close we get. And in the chat for all your viewers out there, let us know who you are supporting for this race out there tonight, for this season here at PSGL Season 43 at PCF3, because it can't be long now until we get this on the road.
No, I don't think it will be. We will be very interested indeed to see how these drivers will take to this circuit. Of course, Silverstone Circuit, one that they run plenty of times, but I'm not sure they've done any competitive running on this year's game, especially on this circuit as well. So whilst they try to scrap it out with each other, they're going to try to learn everything that they are all going to do, because it's going to be different dynamics as the lights are on.
At 5 red lights on. Away we are for season 43 here in F1 26 with a great start at the outside line for Rafael Kunz. Better for Claudio Diaz. He's already gone around the outside of Cloud as Diego Ferrer is still close with them. We see some swapping around with Redmers and Max van der Kees going for a heavy battle for P5. Max trying to go around the outside of Redmers, taking some more traction. Let's go on board with him. A little contact as it was there, but he's managed to make his way around the outside of the Aston Martin. Still very close to him, but so far a clean start all the way through. Let's see how many overtakes we have already had. It's a yellow now. It looks like it is an Alpine, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's a Williams of Toppe who's dropped down the order, and Lucas Beisner has gotten a 10-second time penalty for collision. But out there at the start, it's 5 places gained for Carlos Galindo, 3 gained for Valentino Labella. Claudio Diaz has managed to leapfrog Cloud, but our race leader is still Rafael. Look at that, he's already got almost a second in hand.
He certainly does, but under this virtual safety car, that could disappear very, very quickly. And actually, Claudio Diaz is already 3/10 behind our race leader. Ivan Escrig, Scott Holmes, Toppe, and potentially Drax as well, all engaged in lap 1 scuffles. I think Drax may well have been involved because he's now 1.9 off the back of for an extra journey as it stands. I saw Ivan Escrig backwards. I think that may well have just been contact between himself and Toppe, and Holmes just having struggles early on to get into the game, I believe, so he may well not have been involved in the contact, but he's certainly lost a lot of time and he's going to lose more under this virtual safety car as Lucas Bison's had a dramatic start to this race. Contact under the virtual safety car gives him a 10-second time penalty. He's not going to be able to overturn that because of the fact that he is going to be pitting once again in this race, and that will force him to serve it. Kennis, Giorgione and Escrig into the pits on lap 1.
Yeah, a couple drivers have gone into pit lane. Kenneth Giorni and Escrig, as you indeed mentioned, and now Scott Holmes also diving into pit lane, getting a 10-second time penalty for speeding in a pit lane as we are back on our way. Scott Holmes has also retired from the race, our first retiree from season 43 here at F1 26, and Rafael still leading the pack, but where we had a little bit of a gap, about 2 seconds between Max and Redmers, between P5 and P6, that gap has now closed down. The only gap that started to emerge is behind Carlos Galindo, Victor Garcia being 1.1 seconds down, and of course the pit stoppers down in P18 that have got quite the gap out there. But I think we're going to slot in with Diego Ferrer because he's very close to that Mercedes of Cloud up ahead, showing the nice black and white Haas colors as he makes his way down the hangar straight. How close can he get to Cloud? Is he going to go for an overtake? No, he backs off at least for now, and he's happy to stay where he is, which is P4.
Imagine he'd be pretty happy at the moment with P4 for the Cadillac as he starts off this race, and well, all the top runners are going to be on the medium compound tyre. The only drivers to have gone for a different strategy, Takubi, who's just dropped a place to as Victor Garcia, looks like he may well have actually come into the pit lane. Indeed he has, but it will be Takubi, it will be Iguanu, it will be Lawyers, and it will be Toppe, who all started on the hard compound tyre. Giovanni Kennis switched over to the medium after lap 1. Frank Journey and Ivan Escrig both switched over to the hards, so they will be trying to go throughout the rest of this race on that set of tyres. Victor Garcia will be joining them on that journey with his front wing being completely fixed. Rafael Kunz did start this race in first place, and he continues to lead the way as well, Claudio Diaz swapped with Cloud for second and third place. They will try to maybe have a fight very soon, will Cloud, but Diaz will be trying to cling on to the coattails of Rafael Kunz. DRS won't be helping him, straight mode will, but straight mode will be helping all of these drivers in this fight.
Yeah, I'm currently going quicker, a little bit down the line here, around P12, P13, where the likes of Mario Ziwano, Steg, and Drax are quite close to one another, trying to catch up with David Martinez, one of our stand-in drivers for tonight. Marius has already made up 7 places so far, the most positions gained out of any driver so far tonight, and he's looking to add an 8th to his tally as he's so close to the back of that Audi. He wants to go, he has to go round and stow He has left almost no space by David Martinez. Still side by side they go. The next corner, he will be on the inside. Puts it on the inside, but still side by side they go. Can he get round? Lawrence got beating in the pit lane. He is out. Marius has been pushed back. Steg now battling with David Martinez. He will be on the inside for turn 1, and it looks like he has finally gotten through and will indeed be ahead. But Marius losing 2 positions in the process. Now only 5 places, gained 6 as he gets past Drax once more.
Yes, he's going to be trying to fight his way back up through the order as the Williams. He certainly had a good start, and he'll hope that that's not going to break his momentum or his confidence too significantly. We've got yellow flags because, of course, Lawrence Lowers is coming out of the pit lane, and he will be just retiring from this race. Unfortunately, our second retirement from this one in the Cadillac, or in the Ferrari even, with the Cadillac of Scott Holmes, which means that one of our teams, one of our brand new teams, will not be getting their both cars to the line on race number 1. And with Diego Ferrer, the other one, is in a good position. Claudio Diaz, even better position in the Aston Martin, ready to go chasing with Rafael Kunch. He's sitting in the slipstream. That's still, of course, in effect. They'll head up to Stowe Corner. Claudio Diaz will give himself a little bit of a wiggle, try to motivate himself on, but Claudio Diaz just doesn't quite have the momentum to take his way past Kunch at the moment, as Kunch's teammate Takubi drops the place to Steg.
Yeah, we're currently watching Steg, who has just gone past Takubi, as you mentioned. Mario Ziwano is trying to catch up with Martinez, fighting tooth to nail with Drax and Tope as he now comes into pit lane. But looks like also Colors Galindo has, or is at least a little bit struggling to keep up with the drivers up ahead. Same could be said about Beisner, now almost 9/10s down on Valentino Labella, the top 7, really being in a pack of its own. And yeah, of course, Lucas also having a 10-second time penalty to his name. We just got back, we heard back from Scott Holmes, our first retiree of the season, causing that virtual safety car. It looks like his wheel cut out, and that is why he retired from the race. So we had some issues with the force feedback. It cut, came back, and then propelled him out of the race, sadly. So hopefully he'll get his issues resolved for the race next week. But for tonight, sadly, Joseph, he is out.
Yeah, and it's his home race, so it will be an extra layer of disappointment for Scott Holmes that he wasn't able to come to the end or even really put up a challenge in his home race. But of course, it's a popular circuit. I'm sure it'll be back at some point in the game cycle, so there are positives to take out of that one. And I'm sure he's done the practice, so he has put in the hard yards and got himself prepared for the next game or the next season potentially. But it's still very early stages in this one, and so we don't quite know what the order's going to be. One thing's for sure, the Williams Jr. doesn't want to be down in this order. He's past Uano, his teammate. He's trying to get past Drax. He can't quite make his way through just yet.
Now we see a lot of fighting going on for that P12. Drax Tope and also Mario Ziwano, who's caught back up with him. Further up ahead, it looks like our queue for the first 8, Beisner's actually managed to catch up. It looks like they're not looking to overtake each other just as much and just stay put where they would like to be. As of the drivers that have gained places, of course, sadly, we have some drivers that have lost positions. 7 positions lost for Giovanni Kennedy. He's made a pit stop. Martinez has made a pit stop, now going for a second pit stop, I believe. Wonder if there's anything going on there. Garcia also lost places because of the pit stop. Who hasn't lost places to pit stops is Drax, currently in P13, getting very close to Tope, and also 3 places lost, most notably for Wojtek Steg, now in P10. We're quickly going to take a peek at the tires so we know what everyone is driving on. Most of the drivers starting on the mediums, actually our top 10 all starting on the mediums. We also have mediums for Drax and Giovanni Kennedy. The other drivers out there are on the hards, but of course Yosioni, Garcia, Skriga, Martinez have switched to the hards. Marios, Tope and Takubi started on the hardstyle compounds, but looks like most, at least tonight, Joseph, have started on the mediums and going to go from medium to hard throughout this session.
Yeah, it looks as though that's what they're going to do for now, and we'll see what strategy is going to pay out. Of course, they don't quite know what strategy is the best one to go for just yet. When they get to the end of a game cycle, it's going to be a completely well-oiled machine. They know exactly what to do, but by the time they get to a new one, they don't know what's going to happen. It's all about putting in the hard yards. We're going to get a fight for the race lead. Claudio Diaz to the inside line, and Rafael Kunc, he can't quite make his way through, so he tries to stick to the outside. Kunc later on the brakes, but that's going to compromise his exit. Kunc tries to cover Diaz across, and he's been successful. So the Aston Martin will be trying to make his way through down the straight, but he's got Cloud for company now. Cloud's got Ferrer for company. Max van der Geest is under pressure from Redmers in behind. Van der Geest stays in position, Ferrer stays in position, Cloud stays in position, and Diaz holds P2.
Yeah, a little bit of a cheeky look down the inside for Diaz, but it's not time just yet for him to take over that race lead from Rafael. We did see a swap for P7. Beisner getting past Valentino Labella. Labella wanted to get back at him, but so far has not been successful. But it looks like we're going to see at least a position change in a moment's notice. Martinez has come into pit lane again. He's also got a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane and has now retired from the session, as Ioannou Marios has gotten a penalty for track limits. That's 3 seconds out to his name, but down the inside now, another look from Claudio Diaz, but Rafael Kunc shuts that door and stays ahead, at least till the end of lap 7, as Cloud now wants to have a look down the outside.
Yes, he certainly does. Cloud wanting to have a look, Diaz having a look at Kunc, but no one making the move, no one able to bite just yet, as there is of course going to be yellow flags in that first sector as David Martinez out of the race, meaning that our 2 newbies will not be heading to the end of the race finishing. Here goes Diaz to the inside, he gets through on Kunc. That was a nice clean move. That's what happens when you set it up a lap ago. Kunc expects it, and he doesn't really put too much in the way of defence, because he knows that that's just going to lose him more time. Cloud looked to the outside of Kunc, couldn't quite make his way through. They might go 3 wide. Cloud is going to really try to squeeze Kunc. Kunc really defending to the inside, pushing Cloud as far as he dared, and managing to just about stay ahead. So for the moment, defence successful. Cloud continuing to try to be the aggressor.
Yeah, and it looks like that overtake from Claudio Diaz has set some actions into motion. More drivers now wanting to go for overtakes. Usually that means that a stop is on its way, but given the fact that we're still in lap 8 of 26 and these drivers have to go 2 hards, I am still expecting a one-stopper. I don't think that will be it, but looks like the drivers will at least look to fight a little bit for position. They have gone away now from Galindo quite nicely, 1.9 seconds, then Takubi's down another second. Actually, here comes Cloud into pit lane. So I might have said we might not see anything else for a one-stop, but this might cue a 2-stop as Cloud and Labella are both in. Do you think this is a very early pit stop, Joseph, or are we going to see a 2-stop?
I think we may well be seeing these drivers try to go to the end of the race. We've seen that in the past, the tyre wear on Silverstone has been very, very good indeed. And so this might be the opportunity for them to gamble and try it on the 2-stop where, of course, we don't know what the game is like just yet in terms of all of that. And all of the tyre wear, so clearly they've seen signs and they've seen promise in those hard compound tyres, and well, they've gone early enough and they've gone late enough, in fact, that they are able to cop out and they are able to go again, but they are going to lose significant amounts of time, and so these drivers are taking a massive risk by boxing this early. But I don't mind it, you know, especially in the early stages of the season when there's nothing to fight for really just yet. They're going to take that gamble and they're going to run with it, because at the end of the day, not quite sure what matters more to them, this race, this season, or the preparation for the seasons to come.
Yeah, and with that, Mercedes has now made the first tactical stab of this season. The big question is, who of these drivers is going to follow? Are we going to see more early pit stops from the drivers out there, or are they going to wait for a more reasonable lap 11 or 12? And it looks like at least 3 drivers have come in. No, Claudio Diaz, penalty for speeding in pit lane. We saw him lock up. He braked too late there, and that is a potential race win off the cards for Diaz. Hard break. The first race of the season.
Absolutely it is. And well, he was baited into coming to the pit, baited into the two-stop strategy, and that has worked perfectly for his rivals, who will be rubbing their hands together right now, knowing that that could be a potential race-winning opportunity thrown away in the very first race of the season, but they have to keep it on the straight and narrow for the remainder to give themselves any sort of shot. Lap 10 of 26, and they just continue their way through, and we will just watch as now it's a V-carb 1-2, but of course Lucas Beisner has that 10-second time penalty. He will be forced to serve whether it was fair or not, and he will be chasing in behind his teammate, who may well let him go, and Beisner will be maybe just letting Max van der Geest defend for him, and defend like a lion. It depends even how they work as teammates in round 1 of season 1 of a new game cycle, whether they are actually going to work together as teammates or go it alone. If they are to work as teammates, Lucas Beisner goes through here, Max van der Geest complies, and the Austrian is into the lead. Redmers will be putting the VNT driver under pressure, but he will come short if that is going to be what Lucas Beisner wants. So he's taken a gamble here. He had to take a gamble to build up that gap, and it's just a case of waiting and seeing and watching what Max van der Geest can do for his fellow VNT teammate.
Yeah, it looks like they're going for at least a more standard strategy, but given the fact that they're both driving together, it means they can't go for a double stack, especially with Lucas, who has to serve his 10-second time penalty, so Max can't be behind and take the pit stop with the same lap. I do expect one of the two to come in at the end of this lap, with the other driver following the lap after. If we go to the drivers that have made their pit stops, we now see Cloud, who's actually managed to undercut the drivers behind. He is ahead of Claudio Diaz. Then it's Diego Ferrer, who has also gotten the jump onto Rafael, and then Steg is already 3.5 seconds behind. Same can be said about Labella, who is behind those. So the group that we really have there, the 4-group crew of Cloud, Claudio, Diego, and Rafael, currently 8th down to 11th. Those are the drivers to watch out for, but sadly for Claudio, that speeding in pit lane won't get him a race win, so the other 3 will be fighting for a race win later on, likely with the likes of the drivers currently up ahead in Beisner, Max van der Geest, and Redmers, of which Lucas also has a 10-second penalty to his name.
Yes, he certainly does for now. Lucas is going to really try to break away, and at the moment the gap between the drivers is going to be, well, it's a second between Beisner and Redmers. Last lap around it was going to be around 0.4 of a second as into the pits comes Max van der Geest, and for the V-Carbs day, it's just going from bad to worse. They've had one driver with a 10-second time penalty, and into the penalty club comes Max van der Geest. He's going to pick up a 10-second time penalty, even as we've got more drivers into the pit lane, Redmers and Galindo as well.
Yeah, that is just horrible to see for Max, who, as you mentioned, made a switch from PlayStation over to PC. Has done quite well so far throughout the race and qualifying session, but that speeding in the pit lane will come back to bite him. But we're seeing an awful lot of speeding in the pit lanes, Joseph. I do wonder if that's because of the new game that the drivers still have to get used to, or whether it's the pressure of driving in, well, not only F3, but also the first race of the season, being back after a couple months break. We'll likely hear from the drivers at least later on. If you have some interviews, I'll be sure to ask them. But what do you think might be an explanation for this, Joseph?
I think it's shaking off the rust. They've not had a competitive PSGL session since the end of last season, which was months and months ago now. It doesn't feel as though it was, but it's absolutely flown by that time between seasons, and so these drivers they'll be shaking off the rust. They'll be ready to go once again in this race and in this season, but it will take a couple of races, I think, for them to get themselves underway truly, for their true pace to show through, and that's exactly what we'll see. Lucas Beisner into the pit lane. He is going to serve that penalty that he so sorely needs to get rid of and shake off, knowing that Max van der Geest is not going to be able to help him through the rest of the race. He would have so liked the help of the Dutchman, but unfortunately he picked up a time penalty for coming into the pit lane too quickly, which of course, as we know, you're not allowed to do. Here is the agonising wait for the pit stop, and then he's going to come out of the pit lane. Where is he going to come out? It will certainly be behind his teammate. It will certainly be behind the competitors that he had. He may well be right at the very back of the field with his teammates, or not even with his teammates, with the Alpines even, at the back right now. Kennis just coming into the pit lane. Skrieg just coming through past it, and it'll be Lucas Beisner in P16.
Yeah, in the meantime, we're up at the front where both of the Williams drivers are at. Top pay currently in P3, yet to make a pit stop. Same can be said about his teammate Marius Ioanu as they are going around Cop's corner just now. 11 seconds behind him is Claudio Diaz, who's leading the pack out of the drivers who have made their pit stop. Max van der Geest, when he came out of pit lane, he was 2.5 seconds down. That gap now cut down to 1.5, so he is starting to catch up at least a little bit. And while that might not be great news for him, Joseph, it is great news for Retmers, Steg and Labella, because that means they will be joining that fight for the race win with Diego Fer, Rafael and Cloud. As for the likes of Max and Claudio, their 10-second time penalty will put them out of the running.
Yes, it unfortunately will, unless anything dramatic will happen towards the end of the race. Rafael Kunch looking for a move to the inside line of Cloud into the final couple of corners on this racetrack. Can the McLaren squeeze his way through? Well, he's certainly being squeezed, that by Cloud, but he will make his way through as they head on to lap number 14, and that will be the McLaren upper place. But what can Cloud do in retaliation?
Yeah, it looks like his battery is starting to go down quite a bit, because we saw the Haas just behind. That is not a... No, it's a Cadillac, sorry. The colors are confusing me a little bit there. Is the Cadillac of Diego Fer, who was able to get a very, very close by. And he's looking to have a look down the inside, but has to yield at least for now. And the gap that I mentioned just before, that was 1.5 at Max van der Geest, it is now 0.6 of a second. They are fully caught up with the leading pack. And just the three drivers up ahead, Takubi, Ioanu and Toppe, yet to stop, but I believe they all started on the hard set of compounds. There are drivers behind them now on fresh hards trying to hunt them down. The gap's still 8.7 seconds, but like I said, they will have to make a pit stop later on. Let's go on board with Diego Fer, as Toppe has just managed to overtake Marius Ioanu, but Diego very close to that Mercedes of Cloud up ahead. Is he going to go for a move? He's using quite a bit of battery to get close to him, but will have to back off at round still and has to wait a little bit longer, as Marius has now come into pit lane.
Yeah, Marius Ioanu into the pit lane, so that means that there'll be no problems for himself and Toppe when Toppe does decide to make that switch over to the medium compounder tyre, assuming that he's going to be going on to a one-stop strategy to the end of the race, which would make sense. And if he did anything else, I would be shocked. Ioanu is going to be the sole driver in this field on a set of the medium compounder tyres when he comes out of the pit lane. And where exactly are we going to be seeing the Cypriot driver out of the lane, as Lucas Beisner set the fastest lap, taking it off his own teammate Max van der Geest on the last lap. Ivan Skrieg, 10-second time penalty into the pit lane. It's been a horror show for the Alpines here today. Ioanu comes out just ahead of them.
Yeah, Ioanu's just come out ahead. He's got 3 seconds to his name for his Krieg sadly. That will be a couple more. We're currently watching Drax as he's getting closer to the rear of Carlos Galindo. He is the car that's holding up everyone, trying to get closer to the leading pair, although Labella is starting to fall out of grace with him too. 1.2 seconds down now, but the gap from Galindo up ahead, 5 seconds. That is not what you would like to see for the Red Bull man, but looks like he can't keep up, at least for tonight, with these drivers up ahead. Drax is starting to get closer through Meggetts and Beckett and later Chapel and onto the hangar straight. They will go in a moment's notice. Takubi has now gone into pit lane, leaving just Toppe out of the drivers up front that have not pitted just yet, but Drax seemingly too far behind to make a move just yet. We'll move back to the leading pair. Claudio Diaz is still leading that train. Rafael, Cloud, Diego, Max, Ratmers and Steg are following closely by with a lovely train of 7.
They certainly are, and they're going to get closer to be put back into the right position. As into the pit lane comes Takubi on the 16th lap of this race. So he's going to get rid of his set of hard compound tyres and switch onto the medium. So where is Takubi going to come out of the pit lane? He will come out in 12th place. So he's got a bit of breathing room to warm up his tyres before he catches up to Drax or falls into the clutches of Lucas Beisner behind, and he's got that time to just set himself and just get those tyres in optimal temperature. Of course, it's going to be hard to fight when those tyres are not up to snuff, and those medium tyres do get up to scratch a little bit easier than those hard compound tyres. For those who've not played the F1 game or not watched Formula One before, welcome along. That's going to be the most important part of why people don't fight straight away as they come out of the pit lane. It is going to be that offset of those tyres, so it's a difficult one for them to bridge, but it's one that I think he's going to have the opportunity to bridge, as he's not going to be within, it would be DRS range, but of course we don't have DRS on this year's game. He's going to be about 7/10 off the back of Drax, as he's got those tyres warmed up nice and quickly. Our DRS train, quote unquote, is going to take a while to get used to. Saying straight mode train is going to head down towards the 17th lap of this race. Diaz leads it, and he's of course got 5.7 seconds up to top A as it's side by side. Further back, Diego Ferrer was under pressure from Max van der Geest, and that was kind of forced him to go for a move past Cloud. He went through, and the absurdity of the move down towards the penultimate braking zone kind of meant that Cloud had to get out of the way, and Max van der Geest sorts his way through as well.
Yeah, great opportunistic move from Max, but yeah, we saw Diego was coming so close to the back of Cloud. He had to go for a move. I think it caught Cloud a little bit off guard, had to take evasive action, and that meant that he's now dropped from P4 all the way down to P6, but of course not down and out of it yet. He's actually trying to slipstream behind Max as he wants to get through back again, but for now has to stay behind in that P6 we just mentioned. Takubi has gone ahead of Drax in the meantime for P11, but we are staying with this leading train at least for now, and let's go on board with Max actually, who's in about 2/10 away from Diego Ferrer. He was wanting to overtake him earlier on, but can he do so on this lap? He's getting awfully close through Mackett's and Beckett's.
Certainly getting very, very close indeed. All of these drivers getting close together as Ivan Skrig has just gone for a fast lap attempt, and he's done so. He's managed to set the fastest lap of the race so far on lap number 17. Is anybody going to be able to find any real pace offset? Well, there's going to be a defense from Diego Ferrer that Max van der Geest is going to try to make the most of. Around the outside goes the V-carb, but he's not going to get the momentum to take his way through, but he's still alongside as they head down to the final braking zone. He absurdly tries to go through on Kunch, couldn't quite find his way through, and the gamble he took, the risk that he took, didn't pay off. He sits behind Ferrer.
Yeah, that was a very tricky moment for Max. He was much faster than Diego Ferrer up ahead, but heading into the braking zone, he saw that he was almost going to collect with Kunz, had to hit the brakes as Marius has now retired from the session, but that has happened into pit lane as well. He's now fighting once again with Cloud, hoping not to lose that position, and Cloud will have to come from around the outside into Brooklands if he wants to get that move done, and it looks like he has indeed managed to do so. Great move around the outside from Cloud. He's back into P5. And you see, if a move does not succeed here in this game iteration, it might very well cost you a place or two.
Yes, it may well do indeed. These drivers are going to be just trying to sort themselves out at the latter stages of race number 1 of this season, and we get the chance to crown potentially the first winner. We'll be racing against F5 for that one. These drivers will be racing against each other. Van der Geest through on Cloud, and that's a nice and clean move into the Maggots and Beckett section for the V-carb that's going to be more successful than the dive that he made on the last lap. So he's up into 5th place. Diego Ferrer the next target. Redmers looks to the inside. Around the outside goes Cloud. He's managed his straight mode enough so that he's able to fly his way back past the V-carb.
Yeah, and this shows how important that battery management really is. Max used it early on, go for an unconventional overtake into Maggots and Beckett, but that meant that down the straight line, he was quite vulnerable down Hanger Straight and saw Cloud come by, and the gap now increased to 5/10s with Redmers now banging on his door on his rear view wing. And at least for now, it looks like he is tucking in nicely behind through Village and into the loop, so I have to wait a little bit before he can can get past again. Let's go up to the drivers further up ahead. They have almost caught up with the race leader Tope, who has yet to make a pit stop. Claudio Diaz still leads the pack, but he's got a 10-second time penalty to his name for speeding in the pit lane. Same also for Max van der Kees, who's currently in P6. So provisionally, we have Rafael leading that race ahead of Diego Fer, and then it's Cloud.
Need to avoid penalties, otherwise it's going to be really hard for us to keep track on late race, because of course it's going to be down to, I think it's going to be down to tenths of a second between these drivers. Tope has been caught up by Claudio Diaz, and it's almost like trying to navigate their way through lap traffic when those hard compound tyres are so worn as they are for the Williams driver ahead. But of course they are not going to be as worn as occasionally they can be on this year's game, because we know that Silverstone is going to be quite a low degradation circuit, and Tope at the moment is trying to defend for his life to remain in position. And of course he's not fighting for his teammate. Marius is out of the race. Tope backs out, and that's a smart move. To the inside then of the final couple of corners goes Redmers, and he's going to try to make his way through, or Max van der Kees can't quite jump through, so just slots back into P7, which will become P6. This is the order that we were expecting. This is back to ordinary racing as we head on to lap number 20, and we've got our train of 7.
Yes, we've got our train of 7 indeed, as further behind Labellas, 2.3 seconds down. But once these drivers start to fight more and more, they might fall into the clutches of the second Mercedes man, who's hoping to get back at them and go for some more fighting. But look at that, Claudio Diaz and Rafael fighting tooth to nail. Rafael going off track momentarily as well. He does stay at least into P2 for now, not picking up any penalties at least for that, so that is good. But looks like the fighting is already starting to intensify, even though we're still on lap 20 out of 26. No moves to be made around Copse Corner, but down the Wellington, not the Wellington Straight, the Hangar Straight, we might surely see some moves, although through Maggots and Beckett's, Rafael has a look down the inside, but has to yield for now. We'll need to wait a little bit more. We saw what happened with Max earlier on. Go for the move here on Hangar Straight, otherwise you'll be re-overtaken there. You have to go for a move now, but now the gap has gone just a little bit too big.
Yeah, the words of warning at the moment, they need to heed them as they head through the latter stages of this race. I'd imagine that they're going to be having the fighting now as Rafael Kunc to the lead of the race, Diego Ferrer defending against Cloud 4 P3, and then these drivers just trying not to bump tyres, trying not to lose any of their front wing as they head around towards the final corner. That's been the prime overtaking opportunity for them, but they have to manage it, because they know that, I'd say about lap 23, they're going to set themselves for that final lap. The fact that they generate and lose all of that straight mode and all of that battery so quickly means that they can have these short, sharp battles. They won't get extended ones, but what it means is they could fight on lap 21 and be ready to go again on lap 23. Then they can fight on 23 and be ready to go again for the final lap of the race. So that is why we're seeing a prolonged period of action between these drivers. And of course, the respect they're providing to each other is sensational. I mean, the racing room that's been given is nothing really like we saw on the last game cycle. So this is a very strong way to kick off proceedings for F1 26. Rafael Kunc continues to lead the way. He's the favourite for the victory right now. Claudio Diaz just 2 tenths behind.
Yeah, and behind that's again 2 and 1/10 even now. Steg also getting within 1. But we see behind Labella, he was down quite a little bit more, substantially more. It's now 1.5. Mercedes man really starting to catch up with this pack of 7. And I guess because they're fighting, he gains, but for the drivers also, they have to fight, they have to pick up the pace, otherwise they're going to be overtaken nonetheless. They want to make some moves here into the final couple corners. Oh, there's a little bit of contact there with Cloud, who momentarily lost control of his car, still stays ahead of Max, but losing a lot of speed down the Hamilton Straight. Max, in turn, will keep Redmers behind, but this is all great news for Labella, who's grabbing away tenths and tenths every lap as they go. 1.2 the gap now is, and very soon, Joseph, we'll have 8 men fighting for the race win, as Tope is got speeding in the pit lane and retired from the session as well. 6 retirees now in total tonight.
Yeah, he won't be happy with the way that his season has started. Will Tope, of course, he expected to be right at the very top. So the fact that he was fighting further down in the order, he's going to try to pick himself up and go once again. He'll be disappointed with the way that his season has kicked off. These drivers will be watching for that Valentino Labella gap, but also knowing that Valentino's tyres aren't going to be as in shape as he would have liked them to be. Those tyres are going to be about the same wear as Cloud's, and they are going to be pretty worn through this segment of the track, especially because, of course, they're going to be taking the highest load on the circuit round through here. 13 laps on those hards. 1 lap of difference between himself and Steg, Ferrer and Diaz. It might not sound like much, but it's a huge amount when you really get down to the nitty-gritty, when you get down to the final few tenths. Victor Garcia going to pick up a 3-second time penalty. That's not going to affect anything for points. Of course, it's still the top 10 as Cloud is going to send it maybe to the inside of Diego Ferrer. Nope. Decides to stay behind. Decides now is not the time. We head on to lap 23. Then we'll head on to 24, 25, and then they'll all stack themselves up heading on to the final lap.
Yeah, another interesting thing that I just noticed, because of the 10-second time penalties that Claudio Diaz and Max van der Geest currently have, when those penalties are being put in, they will find themselves in P11 and P12 outside of the points, promoting Carlos Galindo and Drax up into the points, as Max and Cloud are having a little tussle for places now down the Wellington Straight, and Max will be ahead of Cloud now in P4. But yeah, 2 penalties yet to be served. Garcia's also retired in pit lane after speeding in pit lane. Just 14 drivers out of 21 still out there, but hopefully we will see all of them reach that finish line. We're now on lap 23 of 26. The yo-yoing will start, the battling will start, but who comes out on top?
Yeah, it's all been very managed for the point that we're at. But as they head towards the later stages of the race, as they start to push towards different corners, as they try to take unorthodox ways to make their way through, it will be who will come out on top. This is where strategy goes out of the window. This is where race management really becomes the most important asset. You can get yourself up there on pace, but you can win just purely on mindset. And these drivers have clearly shown themselves to be rapid. So we will see where they are able to stack themselves up. And by the way, my podium prediction still very much on. Diaz, Ferrer and Max van der Geest, I believe it was, and those 3 are in 2nd, 3rd and 4th respectively, but they're all going to have to make their way through on Kunch if they want to sit their way on the top step. Around the outside looks Max van der Geest. He's later on the brakes. Diego Ferrer once again trying to fight back with him. Max van der Geest, this would be an unbelievable move if he's able to get through on Ferrer as well. Not quite yet, but he's confirmed that position on Cloud, and he knows that Ferrer can crumble under pressure pretty easily. Around the outside he looks, later onto the brakes once again, and through on the V-carb. That is a huge charge from Cloud to make his way back past the V-carb and up into 4th place once again. This is fighting that 3 on the podium right now will be loving to see.
Yeah, and this is once again showing how important that battery management is. Max going for some moves at some more unconventional places. Does do so again just ahead of Maggots and Backets. He will be in. He wants to get a second one. Oh, there's contact. Max spins out. There's a little bit of contact with, I believe it was either Ferrer or Diaz, but I don't think there's any damage as a result. Max van der Geest will be out to the points with this mistake though, but he went for a dive, just one too much. But you see here, the battery management is key. Max uses it at different moments out most of the drivers, allows him to overtake at places where other drivers don't do it, but it also means that the drivers will be able to come back at him at other places. We didn't see that sadly now, as he lost control of the car, but that was a very audacious move from the RB man.
Audacious indeed for the RB man, and it didn't work out for Max van der Geest, so for him the gamble hasn't quite paid off, and he will just try to help himself going into the next couple of rounds of the season, knowing that he has the pace to be right up there with the top drivers, but knowing also that Silverstone is a very strong track for him. The penultimate lap of this race is underway, and Rafael Kunch is under pressure, more pressure than he's ever been throughout the course of this race, as they start to use their overtake mode. Diaz is going to try to sit back just that little bit. You can see that by the fact that the gap between the McLaren and the Aston Martin is growing, so keep your eye out for Claudio Diaz in the final lap of this race, in the final skirmish of this session and of the first race of this season. Rafael Kunch 3/10 ahead of Diaz, but don't forget as well, Claudio Diaz has a 10-second time penalty, so this looks like it's going to go the way of Kunch if Diaz does try to fight it out like he's going to take the win on circuit, which of course will be the most important part for him. Ferrer and Cloud and Redmers waiting behind. Steg, I think he's too far back to really make a stamp on these podium positions, but if there's any contact, if there's any issue, he's there to pounce as they head down towards this corner, which has been an overtaking opportunity for so many. Cloud looks to the outside of Ferrer. He goes for the Max van der Geest. He gets the Max van der Geest. He's through on Ferrer and he's up into the podium, but that costs him 3 crucial tenths. That means that Kunch might just have had the chance to break away.
Yeah, and there we see it. Cloud's gone through in P3. That will put him P2 once the checkered flag comes in. Diaz and Kunz are fighting. Oh, that's huge contact into the loop. Okay, I was not expecting that. Cloud's now been pounded there. Rafael's managed to get away. There was a lot of contact there in the loop. Redmers is now in P3. Ferrer is in 3rd. Beisner has now started to catch up. He is fighting with Steg. But what on earth happened there, Joseph?
Well, that's something that I'm sure will be debated in the stewards' room, which means that Claudio Diaz is out of contention at the top of the order, which means that we have a battle that is down to just the 5 as Diaz is back through on Takubi and up into 6th place. But of course, they'll lose positions to Valentino Labella, they'll lose positions to Galindo, to Drax, to Cloud, to Max van der Geest as well. Those are 2 of the drivers at the back of that group that were just picked off and picked off. It was first Van der Geest, then Cloud, then Diaz, and now we are left with just the 4. Just the 5 if we count Lucas Beisner, who's fought his way back exceptionally. Steg through on Ferrer and up onto the podium late on. He just waited to see if there was contact, and now the Thomas Enger Sim Racing driver has made the most of it. But the driver that's benefited the most from the fighting is the one that was able to build a gap from it. The McLaren of Rafael Kunch takes the victory the first round of the season. Redmer's not able to get close enough. He's in P2. And Wojtek Steg snatches the podium late on with Beisner and Ferrer 4th and 5th. What a fight towards the end of the race. And it was just down to the most consistent, the quietest driver in that fight, Rafael Kunch, to show the maturity to take the win.
Yeah, and it looks like in the chat we see some words from Diaz to the account of Cloud. So it looks like Cloud might have initiated that contact with Claudio Diaz that set them round. But of course, for the man here cheering, the McLaren man cheering, it won't matter for him because he takes that first race win of the season. But a laughing third, a very much laughing third, will be Wojtek Steg. Did not really have a look out on the podium positions there, but with all that happening in the final lap, still picks up the final spot on the podium. Here we have our full classification. We have Rafael Kunz getting the race win ahead of Redmers. Then it's Wojtek Steg, Lucas Beisner in 4th, Diego Ferrer in 5th, ahead of Labella, Carlos Galindo, Drax, Cloud coming home in 9th, and Claudio Diaz picking up the final point in P10. Then it's Takubi, followed by Max van der Geest. Giovanni Ken is in 13th, ahead of Frank Yazziorni. And then we have our retirees of the evening. Victor Garcia, Top A, Mario Ziwano, Ivan Krieg, David Martinez, Lawrence Lawes, and Scott Holmes. But we've seen quite the action out there, Joseph. But that final lap was not what I was expecting. And that contact really changed a lot of things.
It certainly did, and for drivers that had such a sensationally clean race, it felt as though they didn't mar their race, but it certainly made it a lot more interesting and a lot more tricky for the drivers late on in that one. We will, of course, see whether we're going to get any opinions from anybody out there, but it was a fantastic race to watch, especially. I mean, up until the final lap, it was a great race to watch. Of course, it got a bit scrappy late on, but at the end of the day, I mean, Rafael Kunch, fantastic performance from our race victor, and he's done a great job. A little bit of scrapping early on in this season is exactly what we want to see, but of course, a little bit of needle as well. We don't mind.
We don't mind indeed. All these drivers are trying to cement their place into F3, show that they have what it takes to go up to F2 next season, and that is, in the end, all that you are fighting for. In the meantime, we're waiting to see if any of the drivers want to go for some interviews. So while we recap the race and talk about all the things that have happened, we might hear from our top 3 later on to see if we can speak to the likes of Raphael, Steg, and others. But we'll hear about that in a moment. But yeah, we've had quite a few things going on here, Joseph. But let's go back to the start, actually, because we've had a few moments, and I heard that Steg was speaking about that as well into lap 1.
I know a couple of drivers were not particularly happy about the way the lap 1 went. Of course, you're going to get oddities on a new game where, you know, it's not necessarily a new game in terms of the download. The download is the same, but what is different is they've changed the coding of it to suit these 26 cars. They might not have the same dimensions that they're expecting to have, so it makes for a little bit of a different dynamic at the very start of the race, and that's exactly what happened there. And it was just about who could fight their way through, who would get a good position. It was a shame to see Mario Suanu out of the race, because he did a fantastic job of that race start, and that's certainly a sign of things to come for the Cypriot, that he could have a very good season. Climbed his way all the way up from 19th to be fighting in the top 10 and fighting to the mid-pack of the top 10, and then unfortunately out of the race. Another driver who managed to make the most of that, Carlos Galindo. He was the biggest victor of the day. He gained, I believe that's to be 8 places on his race start, so a fantastic job from him. But yeah, I mean, it's all about that turn 1, isn't it? It's all about that start, especially at Silverstone, when it's a quick turn 1.
A quick turn 1 indeed. And then another thing that caused a little bit off guard, we saw some fighting going down around lap 8. That was set in motion because the Mercedes drivers tried to go for an early pit stop, quickly threw us off, wondering whether we're going to see a 2-stop or not. But of course, it was just a very early 1-stopper with them going to the hard set of compounds. And sadly for them, it did not work out, as it did not manage to get to the podium positions. Although for Cloud, something can be said about that because of the contact that we saw in the final lap. Other drivers coming through though as a result. Steg sadly won't be making it to the interview room. We'll be waiting a few more minutes to see whether the other drivers will, and otherwise we will start looking ahead to next week, which will be in China. But later, more about that in a moment. Joseph, we've now had our start of F3. Was this what you were expecting?
I mean, there's a few new contenders up at the top of the order. There's always going to be a new driver that takes to this game cycle better than the last one, and then they really set themselves in a good position for the way that their races go. And I think we're going to be seeing plenty of drivers fighting it out there. I was disappointed in the performance of Top 8 today. I really feel as though he could have done better, and I think it may well just be a case of trying to set himself up better in the season to come and pick himself back up, and maybe he could be one of the front runners. I'd be expecting him to be one of the front runners at the end of the season. So that's one of the drivers that certainly surprised me at the start of this season. And on more positive note, I mean, I thought that Max van der Geest was going to be quick, but I didn't quite expect him to be right up there on the podium. I thought he was going to be fighting in and around, you know, 6th or 7th place, but instead he found himself fighting for that podium. So it was really good to see and a promising sign.
Yeah, promising sign from him indeed, and we saw that the alternative battery usage did bring him into play there, but sadly also caused him to spin out as he took too much speed into Maggots and Beckett's. But perhaps something to learn from that for the future races. At least a promising start to the season for Max, showing that he has that speed to match with the drivers up on top. For now though, I don't see any other drivers replying or waiting for us in the waiting room. So it looks like we won't be doing any interviews tonight. But at least it gives us a little bit of time to once more look at the calendar and to look ahead of at the race next week. With the calendar that we have, as Joseph took you through so wonderfully earlier on in the evening, next week we'll be going out to China with that immensely long straight, wondering how that comes into play with the battery usage, because you can't use that straight line mode all the way down that straight, as the straight is just simply way too long. And I think, Joseph, that might mean we see a lot more of overtakes and leapfrogging that we've seen tonight.
Yeah, I think we certainly will. I think it'll be a fantastic setup for these drivers. It'll be really interesting to see what they can what they can do down that straight. Whether it will be just a case of them deploying every single lap on that same straight and then running out towards the end, or whether it'll be a case of the fact that they're not even going to use it at all. I mean, it's all a debate that they will be having for the remainder of the season, really, but especially at China when you have such a long straight to contend with. And then, I mean, the braking zone down at the end is such a good opportunity to regenerate. I'm going to have a look in the week, and I'm sure a lot of the drivers will be doing the same thing, at how much can they regenerate in the hairpin. Because if they can use it all heading down to the hairpin and then gain maybe 75% of it back, I think it's going to be one of the quickest races we could be seeing.
It could very well be one of the quickest races of the season we will see all the way throughout. But of course, more we're going to hear and see about that next week. As for now, it's currently 8:26 out there in England, 9:26 for the rest of us Europeans. Means we're ending the end of the qualifying, the start of the race in the F2 and F4 tiers. So make sure to check in with them as well to see how their first races are going to pan out. We've seen how it panned out here in PCF3, and I think with that Max, with Max that we're going to see next week out as well. Joseph, I think we're on for a good one next week. Any closing words from you?
Oh no, I'm just absolutely looking forward to next week, and it's great to be back for PSGL action.
It's great to be back indeed. As from all of us, it's great to be back. And next week, we'll be back once more with the second race of Season 43 in China. This was PC F3 for this evening here in F1 26. We'll be back next week, which is the 23rd of July at 7 p.m. sharp. So catch you all then. Have a good one. See you next week.